Okay, so for you guys' homework, remember it was the translations homework, which is Unit 5, Lesson 11, and it was 1, 2, 4, with 6 being extra credit. Okay, so we're given this triangle ABC, and we want to graph and label the prime coordinates, the double prime coordinates, after a sequence of transformations. Okay, that consists of a reflection over the y equals 2. So that's the first one that we're going to do. We're going to do a reflection over y equals 2 to get the primes. And then you're going to translate this translation of 5 units to the right and 3 units down. Okay, so remember, 5 units to the right affects your x coordinate. So I'm going to write it as 5, and 3 units down, since it's in a negative direction, we're going to put a negative 3. Okay, that's the proper notation for all of those. Okay, so let's first look at this image. We need to reflect it over y equals 2. So the first thing that we actually have to do is get that line y equals 2. Okay, so I'm going to move up to where the y is positive 2. There it is. And I'm going to draw a line right straight through it. There's the line of y equals 2. Okay, so the reflection from here should be pretty simple. Okay. Right, so I would trace my image onto the patty paper. A, B, C. Okay, I'm getting the y-axis in there, and then I'm actually only going to draw the line of reflection. So that way I don't get confused with the actual x-axis. Okay, so now this is actually going to flip and create the image of A, B, and C prime. So I'm going to move that. There's where B prime is. Here's where C prime is, and A prime actually stays right on the line of reflection because that's where it was, right? So we would get this triangle. Okay, so that's to help you with the reflection piece. Now remember, you want to take this image, this one, and move it 5 units to the right and 3 units down, and then draw your new image. Okay, so this should be enough homework help where you can actually come up with the other coordinates for here. Okay. Now the next question here asks you about why the triangles must be congruent. Now remember, I'm going to fill in the blanks for you. Triangle A double prime, C double prime, and B double C double prime is going to be congruent to the original triangle because blank and blank. Okay, think about the two things that you just did in the problem above, the two transformations, are blank motions. Okay, and that word we just covered in the notes. So if you need to go back and look at your notes, please do so. Okay. All right, that's enough for number 2. Let me help you guys with number 4. Now with number 4, you might need a graph. Okay, you might need a graph. So I'm going to use the above graph since I'm not using it. I'm going to graph -2 and -4 to help me. Okay, so that's where C is. And then 410. Here's 410. Okay, so here's this line. Now I can actually find the slope, all right, that it's a rise of 14, so all the way up to here is a rise of 14, and then this is a run of 6. Rise of 14 and a run of 6. And that was for just CD. Now remember, if we translate it, we learned in the notes that if I'm doing a translation, that these would actually be parallel. So that means both CD and C prime, D prime would actually keep this same slope. Even if I move these 5 units to the right and 2 units up for both of them and connected them, I would still get the same thing. 14 units up and 6 units to the right. Now you should be able to find the answer. If you can't, seek help in class. Moving on to the start of number 6 for extra credit. Okay, so the segment MN has an endpoints of -3, 2. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to start to plot these. Even though the graph is optional, I like the graph. N is 1, 6. Okay, so here's this segment right here. And it says I want to reflect it across the line of y equals x. Okay, now remember, y equals x is a diagonal line through the origin with a slope of 1, 1. So it gives me all these points along this diagonal. Okay. Now we could use a patty paper and do it, or you can simply just count the diagonal boxes. 1, 2 and a half, 1, 2. So there's where n prime is going to go. And m is 1, 2 and a half. So I'm going to go a half, 1, 2. And there's where m prime is going to go. Okay, so that's after one reflection. But they want us also to do a translation to get the finals. Now I'm going to add double primes onto these, just because I already used the primes for just the reflection across to y equals x. I'm going to leave you guys here to be able to find m double prime and n double prime. Okay, remember, graph it and then find its coordinates like it asks you to. Okay, if you need further assistance, you can see me after school for help.